Welcome to Inspiring Narratives, your favorite channel for uplifting stories, renewed hope, and cultivating a deep connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Discover with me how turning to Allah can lead you to amazing changes in your life. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are back with another uplifting story that will, by the grace of Allah, strengthen your faith and renew your hope, inshallah. Let's start by sending peace and blessings on our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Say it with me. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Get yourself your favorite drink, get comfortable. Let's get started with our story. Today I have a story for you that you will absolutely love. The woman of today's story says, I've been seeking Allah's forgiveness since I was a young child. As I grew older, I maintained the practice until I was doing 30,000 istighfar every day. And truly something miraculous happened that exceeded all expectations. All you need to do is start practicing istighfar, and I promise you that you will witness immense blessings. Don't question how it will work. All your miracles and wishes are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just be consistent with your istighfar and leave all the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She says, I lived a difficult life from a young age. I was the eldest with 3 younger siblings, and we were a simple and happy family. At first we were well off, but everything changed when my father passed away while I was in 5th grade. Everything turned upside down. My mother wasn't educated and couldn't work to support us. The only skill she had was using a sewing machine, mending clothes for neighbours and people in the village. The income was very limited. Some people helped us, but their support didn't last. Those who helped one day wouldn't always be there the next. We were 4 children with a mother who couldn't work regularly. When I reached 5th grade, my mother decided to enroll me and my siblings in Al-Azhar schools because at that time they didn't charge tuition fees, unlike regular schools which had costs that we simply couldn't afford. Enrolling in Al-Azhar marked the beginning of my deeper understanding of religion. My mother was a simple woman who knew how to pray and fast, but wasn't deeply knowledgeable about religious matters. When I started attending Al-Azhar, I began learning about religious principles and listening to the stories from my teachers. One day, my teacher was explaining Surah Nuh and came to the verse, Seek your Lord's forgiveness, for He is truly most forgiving. He will shower you with abundant rain, supply you with wealth and children, and give you gardens as well as rivers. What is the matter with you that you are not in awe of the greatness of Allah? The teacher explained the virtues of istighfar and told us that if we wanted Allah to bless us with money, new clothes, and other nice things, since we were children and liked these kinds of things, we should engage in istighfar continuously. As a child, I was fascinated and thought, can I continuously seek Allah's forgiveness and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will really grant me all these blessings? I would get home and start practicing istighfar regularly, and soon things started happening. One day my uncle came round and gave me money. Another time my auntie came over with gifts. The more I noticed the blessings, the more I wanted to practice, the more the certainty in my heart grew. I would practice a small amount according to what I knew at the time. I was never really aware of how much I was doing. After I finished primary and reached secondary education, of course I wasn't taking private lessons, most of my friends were, because we couldn't afford it. My friends were surprised I wasn't taking private lessons, and I couldn't tell them why. So I'd say I like to be independent and study everything by myself. Before opening my books to study, I would first seek Allah's forgiveness, and Allah would bless me with understanding and clarity. Rizq, meaning sustenance, isn't just money. Rizq comes in so many different forms. Before starting to study any subject or opening a book, especially if it was a difficult subject, I would constantly seek Allah's forgiveness. After finishing my studies, I found that I understood everything very well, and the subject became much easier for me. Even my friends who were taking private lessons would come to me for help with topics they found difficult and couldn't understand. And by the grace of Allah, I excelled in my studies. I prayed to Allah to help me fulfill my father's dream of becoming a doctor. My mother always told me that it was my father's dream for me to become a doctor. However, I didn't get the grades for medical school and was instead accepted into the Faculty of Islamic Studies. At first, I was disappointed, but I had faith and contentment. My upbringing in Al-Azhar taught me to accept Allah's will, knowing that as long as I did my best, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would always choose what is best for us. I got into the Faculty of Islamic Studies and was very content. Initially, I was, of course, disappointed, but I found comfort in knowing that Allah's plan for us is always better than our own. I've always practiced Istighfar and many other adhkar, and I've always been close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I covered myself by wearing the khamar. One day, while visiting my aunt in a neighbouring town, something happened I never expected, and I was upset about it initially, but realised later on that there was wisdom behind it. While I went to visit my auntie, I noticed a young man in her street, and I felt an unusual admiration for him. It was the first time I ever experienced such feelings, and I felt conflicted. How can I be feeling these feelings for someone I don't even know? I didn't know anything about him, yet I couldn't stop thinking about him. I was upset with myself. What are these feelings I'm feeling? What am I doing? I can't be doing this. This angers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, as you all know, we can't control our hearts and how we feel, but this was just how she felt. She says, to manage these emotions, I increased my istighfar and focused on drawing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I sent blessings on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I would visit my auntie every month or once every few months. But when I did, I'd always secretly wish to see this guy. I told my cousin about him. I'd stand on the balcony with my cousin hoping to see him. I would go home and cry. I would wonder why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was testing me in this way. My cousin would find out information about this guy and share it with me. She told me that he is a doctor and that his parents are very nice and from a good family. I kept myself busy with istighfar. After graduating, I started attending Islamic lectures, all while still having strong feelings for this person. My cousin would share updates about him, and I would pray to Allah, asking him to make it easy if this man was truly meant for me. Later, one day, I found out he had gotten engaged to a doctor from his area. When I discovered this, it felt like my whole world turned upside down. I was devastated, as though the entire world had caved in on me. To overcome the terrible feelings I was experiencing, I continued to seek forgiveness from Allah. I stopped praying for him, accepting that he wasn't meant for me. Instead, I immersed myself further in istighfar and salawat and drew closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I began attending Islamic lessons and continued memorizing the Quran. I also prayed to Allah to remove this person from my heart. I continued this for 6 months straight. I maintained a routine of 30,000 istighfar every day. Then I heard news that they did Heartbreak, the Islamic marriage contract. My cousin told me they had done the Heartbreak and their wedding is in 2 weeks. They had booked the venue and all is going according to plans. In that moment, I sincerely wished the best for both of them and made dua for them. The next surprise, I found out he had called off the wedding. They were officially married as they had written the Heartbreak. They had booked the venue and their home was all furnished and ready. I found out that he left his bride just a week before the wedding. Although I felt a glimmer of hope, I swear by Allah, I also felt sorrow for the couple's situation. A huge upset must have happened between them for the wedding to be called off just a week before. I was sad for both of them. I started making dua again and increasing in my istighfar and salawat, and qiyam al-layl was the key to the answering of my dua. I would pray qiyam al-layl and ask Allah to make this man my husband. If it's good for us both, make it easy and answer my dua, Ya Allah. After leaving his bride by a month, a proposal came to my mother for me. The man was none other than the young man I had admired. I couldn't believe it. It was a miracle. It was a miracle in every sense of the word. When I spoke to my cousin to find out what had happened, she explained to me that he had called off the marriage because he realized he wanted someone who could dedicate more time to the home, and this aligned with his values. A doctor wouldn't provide him with that. My mother and I agreed to the proposal. After a week, he came over and visited, and the families made arrangements. We got engaged and then married. Throughout this journey, I was consistent with 30,000 istighfar every day. I found out that all closed doors open with istighfar. Istighfar opened doors for me that I never imagined. Even if there's something that wasn't written for you, with istighfar and dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change things for you and bless you with what you desire. After we got married, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with our first son. I realized the more consistent I was with istighfar, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surprised me in ways I couldn't imagine. One day my husband came to me and asked what I thought about the idea of pursuing higher education. I was surprised because he had previously said he didn't want to marry a doctor due to this very issue. He told me he didn't mind me pursuing a higher degree, and as long as I continued to take care of the home and our son. She says this was the best news of her life. He would cover the expenses, something I couldn't afford, while living at my parents' house. I now have a master's degree and I'm continuing my education to earn a doctorate. Today I continue the practice of istighfar, and with every difficulty I've witnessed Allah's blessings and miracles unfold in ways that affirm the blessings of seeking forgiveness. This brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this story. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so do leave a comment below. I'll see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.